What if the biggest mistake of your life happened the night before the best day of your life? What if you had everything, the dress, the flowers, the man, the future, and you threw it all away for one night that meant absolutely nothing? This is the story of Elena Castillo, a woman who had real love in the palm of her hand and let it go chasing a feeling that was never really there. Stay with me because this story is going to hit different. And by the end of it, you are going to want to take a long, honest look at your own life. If this kind of story makes you think, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Because we tell stories here that make you feel something. Stories that don't just entertain you, but change the way you see yourself and the people around you. Now let's get into it. The Hartwell estate was absolutely breathtaking the night before the wedding. Hundreds of white roses had been arranged by hand, fairy lights were strung across every corner of the garden, and the whole place smelled like flowers and possibility. Everything had been planned down to the last detail. The chairs, the centerpieces, the champagne, the music. Every single thing was in its place. And tomorrow, Elena Castillo would walk down that aisle and marry Daniel Ose. Now, let me tell you about Daniel for a moment, because you need to understand who this man was before you can truly understand what Elena was about to throw away. Daniel was not the flashy kind of man. He wasn't the type to walk into a room and make every head turn. He was something better than that. He was the kind of man who remembered things. He remembered that Elena didn't like the crust on her bread. He remembered the name of the teacher who broke her heart in the 3rd grade. He remembered every small thing she had ever said in passing, and he held all of it like it was sacred. He had spent 3 years, quietly, patiently, building a life that was worthy of her. 3 years of showing up, 3 years of choosing her every single day without hesitation. And Elena knew all of this. She had always known it. That was the thing that made what happened next so painful to witness. Because that same evening, while the roses were still being arranged and the chairs were still being lined up for tomorrow's ceremony, Elena received a text message. A single text message that she should have deleted the moment she saw it. It was from Marcos. Now, Marcos was Elena's ex-boyfriend, and if Daniel was steady ground, Marcos was a fault line. He was the kind of man who made you feel like you were falling even when you were standing still. Exciting, unpredictable, magnetic, the kind of dangerous that your gut tells you to run from, but your heart keeps dressing up as adventure. His message was simple. It said only 7 words. You are really going through with this? Marrying Mr. Safe? 7 words. That's all it took. Elena sat on the edge of the hotel bed in her robe, her hair wrapped up, her wedding dress hanging on the back of the door, like a quiet reminder of everything she was supposed to be choosing. She stared at those words on her screen for a long time. Her maid of honor, Priya, was asleep in the next room. The hotel was quiet. The whole world felt like it was holding its breath. She should have put the phone down. She should have turned off the light, closed her eyes, and walked toward her future in the morning. But instead, Elena Castillo did what people do when they have not yet done the deep, honest work of knowing themselves. She followed the feeling. She told herself it was nothing, just one last conversation, just closure, just one final moment to prove to herself that she had truly moved on. She wrapped a scarf around her hair as if disguise could also cover a conscience, and she slipped out of her room just after midnight. What Elena did not know, could not have known, was that someone else in that hotel was also awake that night. Daniel's younger sister, Amara, had struggled to sleep ever since she arrived for the wedding. She was nervous, excited, running through the next day's events in her head. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep entirely and went downstairs to the hotel lobby to ask for a warm glass of milk from the front desk. She was standing there, cup in hand, watching the lobby doors when the elevator opened, and Elena stepped out. Not from the bridal floor, from the 4th floor, Marcos's floor. Amara stood completely still. The milk grew cold in her hands. She watched Elena pull the scarf tighter around her head, look both ways across the lobby, and walk quickly back toward the stairwell. And Amara, who loved her brother more than she loved comfortable silence, felt her heart break quietly in the middle of that empty lobby. She didn't sleep at all that night. By 2 a.m, Elena was back in her room, heart hammering, hands shaking slightly, telling herself over and over that no one had seen her, that what happened meant nothing, that tomorrow she would stand at that altar and be a perfect wife, and this night would dissolve like smoke, like it had never existed at all. And in the strange, fragile logic of someone who has just done something they cannot face, she almost believed it. She lay in the dark, listening to the silence, and somewhere in that silence, she convinced herself that she was fine, that everything was fine, that she had simply needed to put the past to rest, and now it was done, and she could move forward. She fell asleep eventually, shallow, restless sleep. At 7 a.m, Priya knocked on the door with champagne and a bouquet of pink flowers, already crying happy tears before she even walked in. The morning light was gold and beautiful. Elena showered, sat in the chair for hair and makeup, and let herself be transformed. The dress went on, the veil was pinned. She looked in the mirror and saw exactly what she had always wanted to see, a bride. But at 8 o'clock, there was another knock on the door. And this knock was different. It was slower, heavier, the kind of knock that does not carry excitement on the other side. Elena opened the door, and there was Daniel. He was not yet dressed for the ceremony. He stood there in a plain white shirt, and his eyes were red, not from crying, but from the kind of long, sleepless night that comes when someone you trust has quietly dismantled every assumption you had about them. He had not slept. Amara had come to him in the early hours of the morning, quietly, carefully, painfully, and told him what she had seen. And Daniel had sat in his room until sunrise, not raging, not pacing, just sitting, thinking, grieving something before it was officially gone. He looked at Elena for a long moment, and then he said, very quietly, 5 simple words. Is there anything you want to tell me? And there it was, the door, wide open, the chance, the moment where one honest sentence, even a devastating one, could have salvaged something. Not the wedding maybe, but the truth, the dignity, the possibility that 2 people who had genuinely loved each other could part without one of them having to carry a lie. Elena looked him in the eyes, and she said no. She said she couldn't sleep. She said she had just needed some air. She said it calmly, the way people do when they have practiced the lie before they even realized they were going to need it. Daniel nodded slowly, the way you nod when your worst fear has just been confirmed, not by what someone said, but by the way they said it. He reached into his pocket and he placed her engagement ring, the ring he had saved for 11 months to buy, the ring he had designed himself, the ring he had been carrying in his jacket for 2 weeks before he finally got the courage to propose, gently on the table beside the door. He didn't throw it. He didn't drop it. He set it down with care, as if even now, at the end of everything, he was still the same man he had always been. And then he said the words that Elena would hear in her head for years to come. The tragedy, he said, is not that he went to him. The tragedy is that when I gave you the chance to tell me the truth, you looked me in the eyes and chose the lie. That means I never really knew you at all. He turned around and he walked away. No shouting, no accusations, no dramatic scene in the hallway. Just the quiet, composed exit of a man who respected himself too much to beg and loved himself enough to leave. If you are still watching at this point, drop a comment right now and type the words, I'm still here. Let's see who is truly following this story, because it is only about to get more powerful from here. The wedding was cancelled before 9 a.m. that morning. Guests received polite messages thanking them for coming and asking them to enjoy the weekend. The white roses that had been so carefully arranged the night before were donated to a hospital nearby. Priya sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Elena's mother moved through the hotel room in a terrible silence, unable to find a single thing to say to her daughter that wouldn't make it worse. And Marcus, when Elena called him later that afternoon, desperate, reaching for something, anything, laughed softly on the other end of the phone and said, come on, you didn't think I was going to be anyone's backup plan, did you? He had a flight to catch. He was already gone before she even hung up. Elena sat alone in that hotel room, surrounded by unopened wedding gifts wrapped in silver and gold, the scent of the flowers still faintly in the air, and she understood something for the first time with total, devastating clarity. Marcus had never loved her. He had loved the power of being wanted by someone who belonged to someone else. He had loved the idea of disrupting something beautiful because it made him feel relevant. The moment she was actually available, the moment the chase was over, he had nothing left to offer. He never did. And Daniel, steady, quiet, devoted Daniel, was gone. Not in anger, just gone. Because he had offered her every part of himself and she treated it like something ordinary, like something she could always come back to, like a door that would always be unlocked. She had not understood until that moment that the most precious things in life do not wait forever. The months that followed were some of the hardest of Elena's life. She lost friends who took sides. She moved to a smaller apartment. She stopped going to places she and Daniel used to go together, not because anyone told her to, but because she couldn't bear the weight of the memories attached to them. She started therapy. Not the kind where you go twice and declare yourself healed, but the real kind, the slow, uncomfortable, painful kind where you sit across from someone who asks you questions you have been avoiding your entire life. Questions like, why do you run from peace? Why does stability feel like a cage to you? What are you actually afraid of? And Elena, for the first time in her life, sat with those questions instead of running from them. What she discovered slowly over many months was that her pattern with Marcus was not really about Marcus at all. It was a version of herself that had never learned to feel worthy of quiet, consistent love. She had grown up watching love perform dramatically, love that came with storms and reconciliations and intensity, and somewhere along the line, she had confused that intensity with depth. She had mistaken the thrill of losing something for the value of actually keeping it. She was so afraid of a peaceful life that she burned her way out of one. And by the time she understood all of this, the damage had already been done. 3 years after the wedding that never happened, Elena heard through a mutual friend that Daniel had gotten married. She heard it on an ordinary Tuesday, standing in her kitchen making coffee. Just a casual mention in a conversation. Oh, did you hear? Daniel got married. Some school teacher. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. He looked so happy. Elena stood very still for a moment, and then she smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, it did. Somewhere deep it still did. But she smiled because he deserved it. Because a man who loved like that deserved to be loved in return by someone who was ready to receive it. And because somewhere in that simple sentence, he looked so happy, she found the clearest possible confirmation that what she had done, painful as it was, had ultimately set both of them free. She had not been ready for Daniel, not truly. And if she had walked down that aisle, she would have brought all of her unhealed parts into a marriage with a man who deserved her whole self. She had not known that then, she knew it now. Elena did eventually fall in love again. It looked nothing like what she had expected love to look like. There was no electricity, no danger, no sense of standing on the edge of something. There was just a man who made her laugh on a bad day and held her hand when she didn't ask him to, and whom she chose consciously and deliberately every single morning when she woke up. She had done the work. She had learned the difference, and she finally understood what she had been too young and too restless to understand before. That love is not a feeling you fall into. It is a decision you make with your eyes open. It is choosing someone not because they make your pulse race, but because they make your life better. Because they make you want to be better. Excitement fades. Chemistry shifts. But character, real character, is what you are left with when all of that settles. And the person worth keeping is not the one who makes you feel like you are burning. It is the one who makes you feel like you are finally home. So, here is what I want to leave you with tonight. If you are in something good right now, something real and steady and honest, do not take it for granted. Do not mistake peace for boredom. Do not confuse the absence of chaos for the absence of love. Sometimes the most profound love in the world looks like someone remembering how you take your coffee, showing up on a hard day without being asked, and choosing you quietly over and over again without making a production of it. And if you have been Elena in someone's story, if you have heard someone who loved you well because you are not yet ready to receive it, know that it is not too late to do the work. The story does not end at the worst thing you have ever done, but the work is yours to do. No one else can do it for you. The lesson of Elena's story is not simply that cheating is wrong. It is deeper than that. It is that you cannot build a forever on a foundation of running. At some point, you have to stop. You have to turn around. You have to face whatever it is inside you that keeps choosing fire over warmth, chaos over peace, the almost over the already here. Because the right person cannot save you from yourself. Only you can do that. And the greatest love story you will ever be a part of begins the moment you finally decide that you are worth the work of becoming someone who knows how to stay. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own relationships or your own patterns, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life such a story might touch at exactly the right moment. Second, leave a comment below and tell me what part of Elena's story hit you the hardest. Was it Daniel walking away in silence? Was it Marcus laughing on the phone? Was it the moment she finally understood what she had lost? Tell me. I read every single comment. And if you are not yet subscribed, do it now, because every week we come here with stories that are real, stories that are raw, and stories that remind us all of what truly matters. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. And remember, the best thing you can do for love is first learn how to love yourself honestly. I'll see you in the next one.